I'm Dr. Sandra Petersen, and I am the Senior Vice President of Health and Wellness for Pegasus Senior Living. So the Connections program is based upon neuroplasticity, which in essence means that in order to affect change in how the brain is wired, we have to repeat actions, and there is a certain sequence that we can utilize that I've found through my research to affect change in the brain that has progressive cognitive decline, such as in Alzheimer's disease or other types of progressive dementias where symptoms get worse over time. So we know that the brain, in essence, has essentially two lobes, two temporal lobes. And the one that it's generally affected first is the left lobe where language is stored. So we often see that word finding becomes problematic for people who have dementia. The last part of the brain that is affected typically by most dementias is the emotional seat of the brain, which is in the right temporal lobe, and that houses things like music and rhythm. You know, it's not uncommon in my practice to have someone who comes into the practice with their mom or dad who has a progressive dementia, and they'll say, you know, my mom was in church her whole life, and now all that comes out of her mouth are these horrid words that she would never have said. And it's because the left part of the brain, that language center of the brain, through the brain cell death created by dementia, has cut off those files where language is stored. So the only remaining language that mom has is in the right side of the brain. And even though she may not have used those words, she probably heard them at some point in her life, and so they're stored there. So she's not cursing or cussing in essence, but rather trying to communicate. But that's the only words that she can get to now because that wiring to the language part of the brain has been cut off through the brain cell death of dementia. I tell you all that to say that what neuroplasticity does is to essentially build extension cords around the damaged parts of the brain. So if we continually tap into the brain in the same way each and every time, it's like building a new wiring around those damaged cells using healthy cells of the brain to reach old memories. So knowing what we know about the brain and how it's impacted by dementia, we can tap into the emotional seat of the brain, which is that right side where rhythmic things are stored. So the connection cycle starts with that connect. So using that for activity, if we use peppermint, for instance, because we know that that revs up the brain and heightens attention, if we connect with that aromatherapy, right side of the brain with peppermint, then we proceed to something interesting, or it will further connect with the emotion. It could be scripture, it could be news events, it could be reading a poem that's meaningful, asking people about springtime, because those all engender memories for each of us that may be different, or talking about holidays like Christmas or Thanksgiving. I mean, just that thought connects to the right side of the brain and connects to emotions. So the first part of our cycle is connect. Once the connect piece is completed, then we move to our move section of the cycle, which allows us to reconnect synapse across the brain to connect that left-right between the right and left temporal lobes, between the emotional side of the brain, logical side of the brain. This is also the part of the brain that's responsible for our ability to walk. Left-right shift. Every time we take a step, there's a left-right shift in our brain. And as to that point, you can test that by realizing that as people advance in dementia, they actually fall more. So that left-right shift is super important. So once we finish the connect piece that we talked about by connecting emotionally, we start to rewire across the different temporal lobes of the brain, left, right. And that can be through various activities as long as they cross midline of the body. So once the brain, the neurotransmitter flows are revved up through the first two, connect, move, then we move to learn, which can be things like math, word finding, filling in the blanks, talking and reminiscing about movies, doing trivia, things that help them connect and reminisce about things that they knew in their earlier life, which helps them not only build strong neural pathways to those memories where there may be gaps, but it also allows them to learn things. And these are individuals who supposedly have no short-term memory. But we can see evidence of that if we're consistent in the Connect, Move, Learn series of them having memory, of them being able to respond to cues, of even saying at some point, didn't we just do this? Which is a victory. It's not a sign of boredom, it's a sign that yes, we rewired your brain, and yes, we did do that. This is someone who can't remember how to get home from the store perhaps, or who can't remember what happened 5 minutes ago, but yet they're starting to remember. So it's that proof in that Connect, Move, Learn, which is an actual treatment that we know works for strokes and other types of brain damage, now applied in a new way to those who come to our Connections